Alrighty, I'm here with Megan, who is a homeschool mom of two. And I'll start just by sharing how we know each other, which is actually kind of a funny story because the first time that we met, I was just going to the creek with my kids and they were wearing their like wide brimmed sun hats. And I remember seeing you there and you were like, "Oh, are you coming for Waldorf Wednesdays?" And I was like, "No." I was like, I'm just here, but like, what's going on? And it was just so funny because I think you said like, oh, with the hats and the boots, like there was like a look that apparently we came to the creek with. But you had been there with this group that you were leading and are leading. And so you welcomed us to come play with everybody that day. So we played at the creek with you that day. And then we didn't actually reconnect for quite a while. And it was actually a mom that both of us knew independently who was part of your group and was like, "Hey, do you want to come join this homeschool group?" And I was like, "Sure." And then I came and it was you. I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "I actually kind of know this group from a weird roundabout way from before." So,
Yeah, what's funny is that you're not the only one that has that sort of story with me. So
yeah.
there's been a few moms in our Wild and Free group also who like came across us at one point with our nature plays. And then yeah, like didn't see us again until they saw us in Wild and Free and they were like, "Oh, hey, I recognize you."
Yeah. It's a small, very interconnected world, which is cool.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, so for you, I'd love to know first, what was your life like not only before homeschooling, but like even before kids? Like, what did
Mm,
your life look like? Who were
Yeah.
you?
Well, those kind of are one and the same for me because we've been homeschooling since the start.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh gosh, let's see, I had Jasper when I was 26 years old. So it wasn't like that long between the time that I was like out of school to the time that I had kids. But during that time, from like the time I was 21 to the time I was 26, I was a special ed teacher in the public school district. And then I also taught dance during the night time.
Nice.
Yeah.
And homeschooling, I mean, yes, you've done it since the beginning. Was it always on your radar, or how did you sort of decide that that was the path that you wanted to take?
Yeah. So I guess a long time ago, I probably, like a lot of people, had a lot of stereotypes as far as what homeschooling looked like and what homeschoolers looked like. I kind of always just assumed that you'd have to be really religious in order to homeschool, and you'd have to be really conservative, and you only really wanted to homeschool if you wanted to like keep your kids away from the rest of the world. And so, yeah, I always thought that they were just like really socially awkward. And but then I ended up meeting Levi, my husband. He was homeschooled from start to finish. And we met when I was 19 years old. And when I met him, I realized that he was none of those things that I had the stereotypes about. And I started to learn that there are different ways of doing it. So I really always wanted to be a teacher ever since I was a little kid. I would like sit down with my stuffed animals and I would like pretend to teach them. So I kind of always really wanted to be a teacher. But I think once I met Levi, I was open to a different way of doing things.
Mhm.
So his parents, their philosophy basically was once you learn how to read, then you can teach yourself anything. And just meeting Levi, like he is one of the most independent people I've ever known. Very motivated. He traveled the world when he was like a teenager. He worked at a French restaurant when he was very young. So he did all of these really cool things where I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's something that could be with homeschooling. So between seeing that and having my eyes opened, and then actually being in the special education classroom myself, Um, and actually seeing like the level of anxiety in all of the kids and just how the system really doesn't work for, I mean, most kids, but really for those that think differently.
Mhm.
I think we had decided very early on that we would be homeschooling once we had kids. So
Yeah.
as soon as I got pregnant, I knew that that was the direction that we were going to go. Yeah.
And do you follow a certain philosophy for homeschooling, or like maybe did you follow a certain philosophy and that has evolved into something else? And or like on that same note, what's your relationship between like curriculums versus no curriculums, and just sort of like how does your homeschool day, I guess, come together?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I would say that in general, with like everything that I do, I try not to come at things from a dogmatic approach. Um,
Hmm.
and so I really liked learning about all of the different approaches. So obviously, as a special education teacher in the public school system, it was somewhat more traditional, but also, like, in a special education classroom, you have a lot more flexibility.
Mm.
So I definitely worked with a lot more, like, manipulatives and stuff, and I did a lot more small group settings and stuff.
Yeah.
But then once we actually or once I came away from the public school system and I was actually at home more and I had more time to actually look into things, I started learning more about Montessori and Waldorf and Charlotte Mason and unschooling. And my sister in law was really into Waldorf. And so she's the one who kind of opened me up into that. And I really liked all of the little festivals that they did and the creativity that they put into everything, and, even just, like, the idea that you should follow the child and really observe where the child is at and meet them where they're at,
Mhm.
I really liked. So, yeah, I would say we are more eclectic, so we kind of pull things from a lot of different areas. Obviously, from what you said, we have a little Waldorf-inspired group that we run on Wednesdays, and we've been doing that for a while. But as far as our normal schedule, we just pull together a few different curriculums. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
So do you have I guess this is particularly interesting too because your husband was homeschooled, so I'm curious, like, did he or you have, like, expectations going into what you thought homeschooling would look like for your boys,
Mm.
and how has that matched up with what it's actually been like, if that
Mm,
makes sense? Like,
yeah.
did you think one thing and then all of a sudden you learned, like, "Oh, maybe not," or, what's your experience with that been like?
Yeah. So, okay. So naturally, I am very much like a planner. Like, I love like sitting down and like making a plan. And like, so I remember when I was, let's see, I was probably pregnant with Jasper. And I was sitting down and I just envisioned like all of these wonderful field trips that we would take. Um, and that was like my dream for our homeschool is that we would just be out and about in the world and doing all sorts of cool field trips. I guess for me, like, especially coming out of the public school system, like, I had really wished that that's what a lot of the kids that I taught got more of
Mm.
was, doing things out in the world more. And so, yeah, I remember just, like, sitting there and making, like, a list of all of, like, the different field trips and, like, places that we could go. And I feel like that actually has, like, actually come to fruition. I feel like
Yeah.
we do take a lot of field trips, and I really love that aspect of homeschooling, how you can go out and actually learn things in the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I didn't know like exactly what curriculums and stuff we would use. I I think I probably had envisioned me using a lot more of the materials that I have from when I was a
Mhm.
teacher because I actually have like complete curriculums from like first grade through 6th grade, and
Yeah.
we have not used, like, any of that.
Yeah.
I feel like once we got to the point where, we were actually doing curriculums, I was like, "This is boring, and I don't think my kids are gonna like this," and so, yeah, I just researched and tried to find things that I thought would fit them more,
Yeah.
but yeah.
When a homeschool day goes really, really well, because obviously we all have like, days that we're like, oh, this is amazing. And then days that are frustrating or hard, whatever. When a homeschool day goes really well, and or like when you think of what your favorite homeschool days are like, what do they look like? And not just like what you're doing, but also like how you're feeling, what it feels like in your body, and how it feels for your kids, and what's like the overall feeling, I guess, of it. And what do you
Uh,
think kind of creates that feeling?
yeah. I think for me, one of the biggest things is balance. Um, I I love it when we're doing, like, academic stuff and my kids are really learning and I'm seeing them growing and, like, those connections being made, but I feel like if we were to do that every single day, then I would feel secluded and lonely.
Mm,
Um, so then on the other side, like, when we have our community co-op days and stuff, and the kids are, like, out and about and learning really cool things on field trips, and I'm really getting to connect with other moms, and they're having fun with their friends. That also feels wonderful, but I
yeah,
feel like, again, if we were to do that, like, every single day, I would, like, feel like we're not getting enough of the academic stuff in.
yeah,
I feel like especially my boys, I have learned over time that they don't learn as well in group settings.
mm,
So it's really great to, like, have the social stuff, but if I actually want them to learn something, I've learned that it's, like, one-on-one with me that is gonna make that happen. So I
yeah,
guess for me, like, the perfect homeschool day would be, like, a balance of all
yeah,
that sort of stuff. So, like, if we could get some good, like, academic time in, but also get, like, some good connective time in with our homeschool group,
yeah,
that would be perfect.
yeah. What part of homeschooling stretches you the most?
Hmm. Type of homeschooling stretches me. I would say, I mean, it's kind of similar to when I was a special education teacher, where you would have this whole plan of all the wonderful things that you're going to do, and the kids are going to love it. And you put so much like thought and time and effort into like making this wonderful lesson. And then all of a sudden you like go to do it with your kids and it just like totally flops.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh. Like, I thought this was gonna be so much fun, like, this
Yeah,
sounded fun for me, but, like, it's just not hitting in the same way with
yeah,
them. Yeah, I think that can be hard sometimes.
yeah.
Um,
And when things do feel hard, what are practices that you have that you feel like reground you, both like on the large scale of just like, maybe it's like a practice you have weekly. Like some of the moms have been like, I go dance once a week and like that, is my thing. But also I'm curious about like in the moment, like when the lesson flops, for example, like how do you move through that and, like, continue
mm,
on to the next thing? Like, do you have little practices or little tactics or things that work for you that kind of reground you?
mm. Yeah, um, I mean, obviously, there's, like, closing your eyes and taking a deep breath, like, when you're feeling stressed out and just, like, taking a break and going into the bathroom. But I feel like so I read this book recently, the Let Them Theory. I don't know
Mm.
if you've read that book.
We talked about it at the mom gathering, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that has really helped me in like all aspects of my life.
Mm.
And so, including working with my kids. So basically, the idea is you can't control how other people react. And the only thing that you really can control is like how you show up and how you react. Um,
Yep.
and so, yeah, I guess that goes for my kids too, that like I thought that it would be a great thing for them, but it's not. I mean, that's not how they feel, and that's okay. I can't control that. And so then, yeah, I just have to decide how I want to show up and how I react with integrity. And as long as I'm proud of the way that I have reacted, then that's all that I can do.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, as far as um, yeah, like weekly things, I do yoga once a week, and I feel like
nice.
that really helps. So I totally tell the difference between the way that I interact with my kids when I haven't done yoga in a little while versus
Yeah,
when I'm doing it regularly. I feel like it definitely makes a difference in
yeah,
grounding me.
yeah, nice. Are there yeah, just in reflecting on how your mind kind of changed about homeschooling as you've been homeschooling the last several years, do you feel like there are parts of homeschooling that have changed you or the way that you think about things beyond just like thinking of homeschooling itself differently, if that makes sense?
Yeah, for sure. I have said that I feel like if I were to go back into the public school classroom, I would be a different teacher.
Mm,
Um, I think definitely just having kids in general has
yeah.
that. Yeah, I feel like when I was a public school teacher, it definitely was um more typical of how you would think of a public school teacher, just like more focused on the academics and um more interested in, like, consequences and punishments and stuff, and I feel like having kids, I have realized that, like, the number one thing over everything else is just the relationship that you have, and
Mm,
that is the most important thing, and nothing else is going to come unless you have a good, trusting relationship with your kids,
mm,
um, and I feel like as a parent, I also have learned that, like, a lot of times punishments and stuff are only going to hurt that relationship.
mm,
And it's better to come from like a place of understanding, um, a lot of times
mm.
than it is just to like go straight for punishment.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. That kind of ties in, or your answer kind of ties into the next question, which is just what are some things that you feel like you've had to unlearn in order to homeschool the way that you want to? But I feel like some of that is connected in terms of, yeah, unlearning maybe the more dogmatic or disciplined approaches in favor of more fluidity and relationship, maybe, is what I'm hearing you say. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I feel like there's definitely a very typical way of thinking about education through the public school system that I shared, which is kind of this like obedience sort of thing, which I feel like is not healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've definitely changed my views on that.
Yeah. And you went to public school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you
Hey,
have, like,
yeah.
a positive experience and
Yeah.
overall?
Yeah. I mean, I was a good student. I
Yeah,
I don't remember hating school, um, but I also feel like I was a good student because I was really good at listening and following instructions, and
yeah,
um, I feel like there's so much more to learning than that.
yeah,
Yeah, I look back and a lot of what I learned, I probably just learned so that I could get an A on the test, and then I would probably forget it and never use it ever again.
yeah, it's so interesting, right? I've reflected on that a lot too, like, how it's not a lot of the learning wasn't necessarily learning that stayed with me in terms of, like, the facts that they wanted me to know, right? But
Yeah.
then I think about the actual learning that I do feel like stayed with me, which was forming relationships and all the experiential stuff that was definitely like second place in school, you know? It's like you're supposed to learn these things in class, but what I actually remember is like what I did at recess, you
Right?
know, or like different maybe challenges that came up like throughout school, right? Like I remember getting yelled at by a gym teacher, or I remember, like those are the things
Yeah.
that stick with you.
Yeah.
But then in terms of the academic stuff, it's so interesting because now as I'm, you know, relearning stuff with my kids, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, number 1, I never learned this, truly never did, and number 2, I don't remember learning this in this way."
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, it also is so much information that maybe my kids will grow up and be like, "I don't remember a lot of that stuff either,"
Mm.
like, I don't.
I feel like when we were in school, at least for me, there was a lot of memorization. And
Yes.
so you weren't really learning why you were doing things. You would just memorize it and that was it.
Yeah, for
Whereas
sure.
I feel like nowadays kids are actually learning more like critical thinking skills.
Yeah. Yeah, it was also like, "This is how you do this math problem," whereas I feel like now what I'm seeing, is kids having to look at the same problem from a lot of different angles, and maybe one of the ways that they're trying to get to that answer doesn't make any sense to them, but then
Yeah.
the other one does, and then they get to see like, "Oh, this one doesn't I don't connect with this one at all, but this one makes sense to me." But there's still so much value in learning that there is another way and knowing that that other way might work really well for someone else, you know, and they might totally not get the way that you're getting there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I do feel like there's so much, value to that, and I feel that's not math, I feel like that's true with a lot of different things,
Totally. Yeah.
so, um, let me see here, if you think back to the beginning of your journey, or, like, imagine that you're talking to maybe a mom who's, like, on the fence about homeschooling or thinking
Mhm.
about homeschooling, like, what's something that you wish you would have known when you started? Or what's something that you just
Mhm.
like to tell yourself, that version of you that was there when you started?
Yeah. I think one of the most important things is just finding a community that supports you and that thinks similarly to you. But I think it's also good to have differences. I think that's one of the most important things with homeschooling and with just like the longevity of like, you're not going to survive if you don't have a community, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest things for finding that community has actually been social media.
Mm,
Um, I'm not huge on social media in a lot of ways, but that is one thing that I think it does really well is helping to connect people.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, and how did you, I'll add this in for you because you did really start a community. What did that look like for you? Like for people who are like, well, I don't know where my community is, or yeah, maybe I feel like I'm the one that has to start it, but I have no idea where to begin. Like, what did that process look like for you, and how did you do that?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, think about what your values are or things that really interest you. And then try to find different groups on Facebook that align with those values. And if you're having troubles finding a group like that, you can just join like general homeschoolers of your city, and then reach out to those groups for other homeschoolers that are like minded or have similar interests. So for me, it was actually a free forest school that we first joined because I wanted to find other homeschoolers that were interested in nature. And so there I ended up finding a lot of other homeschool moms that were interested in Waldorf and nature. And that's kind of where it branched out from. And then some of the moms in that group, they ended up creating their own Facebook group, the Waldorf Homeschoolers of Boulder County. And then from there, other people that were interested in Waldorf in the area ended up joining. And then I could post our meetups on there. So I guess that's the other thing that I would say is that sometimes it takes time. And I mean, there were definitely times with our nature gatherings where, like you said, where you came to us and it was just us hanging out at the creek. And I feel like there definitely were times where it was just us. And then the next week we would just post again and be like, hey, if anybody's interested, this is where we'll be.
Yeah.
Um, and just not to give up because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to find those people. And then once you find someone, then maybe they'll tell their friends about your group and then it'll grow over time. But yeah,
Yeah.
kind of to have to be a little patient.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting too because I feel like it evolves so much too. Like I know one of the other moms and I were talking about this in our group. Like we're excited to see kind of how it continues to evolve as the kids get older too. Like I think about,
Yeah.
you know, where we've been and where we are and where it's going. And like it all feels very exciting to me. And I feel like even as someone who's been like a part of the group for a bit, it's been cool to watch it. I feel like it's grown and like what we're all doing together has shifted so much even in the last like 2 3 years, uh,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool to see and also encouraging because I feel like it is feeling like a group that's like growing with all of us as opposed to like something that will like grow out of, if that makes sense, you know? And I
Yeah.
think part of that, I'll just add, I do think a part of that that has been really helpful is there are so many like for parents of young kids, there are so many like nature groups and play groups and meetups and stuff. At least there are in this area. Certainly don't want to assume that's true for like every city, um, but I think what's cool is once your kids get school age, then the focus does like shift a little bit into like truly creating a homeschooling community versus just like a nature or play group or something like that, which
Yeah.
obviously that's still a really great important component of it. But I think I don't know, that's something that I've observed is like, yeah, as our kids became school age, then making that a focus so that it felt like a homeschool community versus like a community of moms, even though it's both. You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Uh,
my planning again, I'm like, anytime I like come across like a field trip that seems like it could be cool for like high schoolers, I actually have like a list like
Yeah.
already going.
I know. I found one the other day. It was like fourth and fifth graders, and I was like, "Oh, we're like almost there, but not quite."
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, those were the questions that I had planned to ask. Is there anything you feel like you'd like to add, or anything else that I didn't ask but you feel like might be fruitful to talk about?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would say don't be discouraged. Um, I think be open to change because, like you
Mm,
said, things change every year and things are going to evolve. And obviously, nobody is an expert on homeschooling, and only you know your kids better than anyone else.
yeah,
And it's okay to like try something and then realize that that's not the best thing for you and to change your mind and go a different direction. And that's
yeah,
what's so wonderful about homeschooling is that you have that flexibility to really test things out and to change. Yeah.
yeah. I also think it's interesting, you know, because we're the ones like sourcing things to then share with our children. It's like we might have an idea of what we want to share with them based off of like what we love or what we, you know, and then it's like, yeah, sometimes that's received really well. And other times, like they might want something completely different, as we've been talking about. And so that's so interesting too. It's like changing not only from the perspective of like, um, oh, what am I trying to say? I guess just the idea that like, yeah, you never know what works one day might not work the next day.
Right.
And what's really interesting right now might not be. And also, then there's the balance of like, Elena and I talked about this a little bit of like, well, even if you don't want to do it, then there is like a little bit of the dance between discipline, right? Of like, well, you have to do this, you have to learn
Right.
this, even if you
Right.
don't want to. And then there's these other areas where, yeah, you can explore whatever you want.
Yeah,
But that balance between both of those things is also really interesting to me.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's all a balance, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't always want to be the one telling them what to do every moment of the day, but also I think there are some things that are okay for you to insist on them making sure that they learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This was fun.
It was fun.